I think we're going to get Jonathan Papelbon in on the show right now, calling in and jumping in from Mississippi. There he is. I'm assuming at his home in Mississippi. Hey, man, you're with Brent Martineau and Austen Lane, former Jags player, UFC fighter. Give you a little background on him. Don't square up to him in the cage. The only thing, but he doesn't want to get in a batter's box against you either, man.
Definitely don't.
Yeah, I know who I'm going on this show with, man. I do my research before I come on.
How you doing, man? Bishop Kenny to Mississippi State to the big leagues and an outstanding career. And now what after baseball? What have you been up to?
Man, I've actually been more busy since I've retired now than I ever have. But man, I'm doing some stuff with the Red Sox now, some commentating, some in the booth stuff. A little bit of a business I run with my brother out of Florida, actually, and like number one in the carpool line with my 4-year-old. Like I'm like carpool master.
That's a long wait in that carpool line sometimes, isn't it?
Say it again.
That's a long wait in that carpool line sometimes.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they go to a small school, so and I know the back way, so I'll get parents texting me, friends of mine, like I'm carpool cheating.
Hey, you're going to be inducted into the Red Sox Hall of Fame next week. What does that mean to you?
But for me, it means a ton, just because of the simple fact, I just missed the Hall of Fame for Major League Baseball. I wasn't able to stay on that ballot, but going into the Red Sox Hall of Fame for me, especially with the people I'm going into with Trot Nixon and Dustin Pedroia, those two guys, man, I don't think they ever showed up after one game where their uniform wasn't dirty. Just ballers, man. I was drafted with Dustin. I came up with Trot, and Trot hazed the daylights out of me, but we're still great friends, and it's those two families and our families it was like a perfect match. So I'm most proud of going into it with those two people, actually.
Well, that's pretty cool. Those are two great Red Sox along the way, and so are you. What was playing for the Red Sox like? I grew up in that area and a Red Sox fan, so I knew what it was like on the other side of things. But what was the energy and how? I mean, you played in some fantastic places, obviously Philadelphia and Washington too. But what was the energy like in Fenway Park, and how much do you just miss that part of it?
Well, the energy is a lot different now. There's more like of a club scene with DJs and stuff like that. And when I came, it was just strictly fans. But it's a different energy. It's nostalgic. It's the oldest baseball park in America, and the fans there literally are grown. They're born and raised. They're like little baby Red Sox fans that like are like in this culture that it's one of a kind. And coming from being born in Baton Rouge, moving to Jacksonville, Florida, then going to Mississippi State. So I've been in the South my whole life. I had no clue, really. I just knew the Red Sox and the Yankees were a big rival, but I didn't know the lives that poured into the Red Sox nation and how they were. And so I took to that, man, and I loved it. And those were the days, man. I'm living catty corner from Tom Brady, just married Giselle. We're winning in the Celtics, the Patriots, the Bruins, the Red Sox. I mean, I hate to say it, but man, we ran that city, man. Boy, was it fun.
Jonathan, man, I'm such a big proponent of like sports psychology and what someone can bring to the table in terms of intimidation. And I remember, watching you do your thing coming in to close the game, and you had one of like the gnarliest stare downs of all time between each pitch that you threw. I mean, dude, if you ever want to become an MMA fighter, you'd have the stare down to literally make anybody, I feel like, shaking their boots a little bit. How did you? Number one, how did that come about, in terms of you and the stare down, but also like, what did you have to do psychologically to get yourself ready to come in for the game to close it out and just kind of have that, that mentality about you?
Yeah, so, that's a former athlete question, definitely, I could tell. But, That's crazy too, because I actually, when I was at Mississippi State, my major was sports psychology, and there was literally one class for it, and everybody was like, "What the hell are you doing? What is sports psychology?" And and now you look at it, there's not a big league team that doesn't have one, or two.
Yeah.
And the mental health, and so when I stare, getting back to your question, so when I stare down, like I wanted to try and look into that person's soul, and it was I'm coming into the game where the game's on the line, like it's a win or lose situation every night, and so there were times where I could look at somebody and be like, "Man, I got you tonight," and there was other times where I'll be like, "Okay, all right, it's time to strap this something going on. Let's go." Right? I know I got some work ahead of me, but also too, for me, it was a way to get set. It was a way to prepare. I have a pre-pitch routine every time and a post-pitch routine, just like any athlete would in their routines. But man, for me, being able to be in that environment, we had 6 years of straight sellouts. So that means there was 40,000 people in the stands every night. And that energy was something else, man.
Now, taking the other side of things, obviously what you're known for as well as we can call it an Irish jig, we can call it the Papelbon dance, if you will, a little bit. And like, keep in mind, like, we live in the social media era now. So like, if you would have did that now, dude, we would have saw that GIF, that meme, he's thinking the heavens, that didn't happen. I mean, take us through that moment. Obviously you do the dance. How did that come to fruition? Where did that come from? Did you do it at weddings, or like, where did that whole Irish thing come from?
Yeah, so that all came about is the Dropkick Murphys are a big Irish rock and roll band, and they came out to their song in Boston, and they did this is like some of the first, like, Mariano Rivera, myself, Hoffman come out music, right? And
yeah.
So that kind of really resulted in us, winning one postseason after another, and man, we just we were drinking Jägermeister, after the game.
The truth comes out.
I think the Jägermeister, after the game, you're pretty worn down. You don't have much food in your body, and so I think it went straight to my legs, and we just started dancing. But no, that's not like something I do normally. It was just all part of the moment, man, and just a run. We just ran with it,
Jägermeister, cut the check right now for Mr. Papelbon, man. They're trying to make a comeback, a resurgence, if you will, of Jaeger. So get a little endorsement for Jonathan Papelbon over here.
Jonathan Papelbon with us on the Brent Austen Show, Action Sports Jax 24/7 Network, former Bishop Kenny star, Mississippi State, obviously Red Sox closer, win the World Series, Philadelphia Phillies, Washington Nationals, terrific career going into the Red Sox Hall of Fame next week, which is really cool and quite the honor. We appreciate Jonathan hanging out with us a little bit. Hey, man, you had an edge to you. That's what really I think Austin's talking about. And don't you have to in that role? I mean, how hard is that closer role? Which, by the way, you didn't grow up in that closer role. I mean, you were a hitter at Bishop Kenny some and a starting pitcher. And even in the Red Sox organization, I think you started out as a starter and then moved to the pen. But how hard is being a closer? And because it's so difficult, can you even survive that role without having the kind of edge that you had?
Yeah, you have to have that edge. There's no question, in my opinion. I don't know how people can go out there and compete without trying to find some kind of edge. But, for me, and this is one of the reasons why I think some of my records might be even safe, but like you got to go out there for 70 to 80 games a year and be successful all the time. I compare it to an NFL kicker a lot. Like, either you're a hero or you're a GOAT, man. And I remember in Philly, I had 28 saves in a row, which is not easy things to do. That means you have to be on your game for roughly 3 months. And I blew one, and they freaking booed me the whole way off the field. And so, I mean, it's a hard job just because of the simple fact of the matter is you don't get any days off, and you have to be ready. Well, nowadays they're giving guys off, and it's different, but you just have to be ready every day. But I enjoyed that. That's what got me to work every day. That's what I put my uniform on every day. It was like, oh man, I get a chance to play every day. Like, I get a chance to go be a part of the outcome that 25 guys have been busting their ass all day to do. I get to go be a part of a winning out. So that's where my motivation and drive all came from.
Jonathan Papelbon with us. Hey, take you back to the Bishop Kenny days a little bit. What do you remember? I mean, you had such an illustrious career, and there are so many stops, and I get why, hey, a World Series moment and other things are paramount in your mind. But Bishop Kenny, I mean, I grew up in Rhode Island, man. Rocco Baldelli's who we have, you know? I mean, Bishop Kenny has like 50 guys going to the pro baseball ranks just by themselves. What was it like playing at Kenny on the river there, and what do you remember from those days?
Man, first of all, I remember becoming a Jaguars fan when the Jags came into town. Which was, man, that was awesome. So we were always sneaking into Jags games or trying to, get tickets somehow. And then I remember, playing ball at Kenny was, it was a very, very competitive to the point where even when I went to Mississippi State, a lot of the high school kids there that were like Mr. Mississippi, or they thought they were really good, they really couldn't compete like the kids I played with in at Kenny. But yeah, you look at our just baseball records alone. There's so many major leaguers that have come out of there. Bob West started the program with Kevin Witt and producing major leaguers. So for me, it was an old stomping ground where I found myself as a baseball player. Yeah, I played the outfield, and yeah, I pitched a little, and I tell kids this all the time, man, you don't know where your career is going to end up professionally, athletically, anything. Just be as well-rounded as you can. Play multiple sports. I played football as well. So that's what builds your athleticism and learning how to work with other people and get along and accomplish goals, all those things that go into it. But Kenny was a great, great foundation for me to get started in athletics. There's no question.
How big a Jags fan are you still, and what do you think about them if you're paying attention to Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson and company about 2024?
Yeah, I am a Jaguars fan. You could say that I've always been a Jaguars fan. I lean a little bit towards the Saints a little bit more now. I gotta be honest. I did grow up being a Saints fan, but they suck so bad. We kind of converted to the Jags. But now, they won with Drew Brees. So I'm kind of on the back and forth with the Jags and the Saints. But obviously, man, I hope they have a good year. And health is going to be a big key component. If Trevor Lawrence can stay healthy, I feel like he's in that era of his game where he's starting to come into his own. Feel himself a little bit, know what he can do well, what he can't do. Sometimes the biggest thing is learning what you can't do. So I look forward to him having a big year.
Do you view sports, like when you watch baseball, do you view it, or even football, like you've made some comparisons, but I mean, you've been there, right? Austin's been there. Do you watch it in a different way and almost have, some things probably get more mad than an average fan, but others also have a little bit of sensitivity to what maybe a player or an athlete is going to in a specific time?
No, I don't at all, especially if I'm gambling on the game. All kidding aside. I mean, as baseball now, being a baseball, like I watch baseball differently. I analyze every little thing that happens like through the game, whereas a normal fan probably isn't doing that. Now, football, basketball, I'm your normal fan, man. I'm just watching it. Like, if I bet a buddy on it, I don't care who it is. I'm trying to beat him. So baseball is different for me as far as watching it, but football and basketball, even hockey a little bit I watch. I'm learning more about hockey, but I watch that as a normal fan.
Hey, you put your head down on the pillow at night, and how many times in the course of a week, a month, a year, do you just think of the final out to win the World Series in the moment? Does it enter your mind or not
all
really?
All the time, man. All the time.
Nice.
I'm and I've got kind of like a dig me room, I call it, so it's all over my room. And so it's just a moment that like, it's hard to explain, but it's also like, man, I did it. And a lot of people tell me sometimes, like former baseball players are like, golly, man, you did my dream. You struck out somebody to win the World Series. And, it's something great to think about. And even the guy I struck out, I played against him at Ole Miss, Mississippi State since I was like 18. So, there's so many different aspects to it.
Jonathan, my last question for you, man, is, when you're on that mound and you're staring those batters down, essentially looking through those guys, what was the one batter who you could kind of sense his presence, who was staring right back at you, and it's kind of like, oh man, it's about to be a battle, or man, maybe I'm a little nervous right now, just the way that he carries himself and his demeanor.
Yeah, so I always thought being nervous was a good thing. Like if I got butterflies, like that's what I want, but like I want all the butterflies like flown in the same direction and all ready to attack at the same direction. You know what I mean? And I could definitely feel guys try to disrupt that. Derek Jeter for me was always like just a guy. He'd stare right back. He'd be like, "All right, you ready?" I mean, basically, I could have a conversation with him in my head, not even talking, And it's like I always knew that he was going to do whatever it took, man. And he was always a big challenge for me. And there were times where I got him, he got me. So I always